encounters. The study of that which consciousness encounters, or phenomenology. So I love this idea to focus on the study of that which consciousness encounters, you might say, as presented by the outside world. Now, when I studied this in college, it was a beautiful idea for me. I mean, really, really one of those life-changing ideas. Because when I began rabbinical school, and I would look, for example, at the Siddur, and by the way, when people say to me, how do you come close to God? My immediate answer among many is the internalization of a text, of a holy text. So my question, it wasn't like the question such as, do I believe to be this to be literally true? That's a way of gaining knowledge that actually goes nowhere. It's a complete dead end. But let's say as someone who wants to create the interface between, let's say, the text and my consciousness and my understanding that I have categories of perception and knowing, my question was, again, I was taught this in school, not what does the text mean, but what meanings can the text bear? My question was, what are the poetic dimensions of the text? My question was, if the divine is percolating within this text, how do I perceive the divine, speaking out of the text? And because of my theology, as it were, how do I perceive what the divine is trying to communicate to me from the inner life of this text, to my inner life? So I realized the meaning of the text was mostly created by the questions I brought to the text. And what I realized was the questions that most people bring to a holy text make the text meaningless. They say, the text is meaningless. My response is, what questions are you bringing to the text? Out of what qualities and categories of knowing are you bringing this to the text? Now, what does it have to do with the word kadosh? Theoretically, God is omnipresent, all places at all times. From a phenomenological perspective, from the way consciousness experiences God, God is kadosh, separated off. How? Separated off in consciousness. You know, when I get up in the morning and begin to walk down my street and go my way, I'm not conscious of God until I stop and decide to be. So when people say to me, how do you know God? One of the first things is the decision to be open to God's presence. It's a decision. Now, you might have, and I've had, and many people have reported to me, an overwhelming, awesome infusion of the divine presence, and that's a real gift. I mean, I've been eternally grateful for the times it's happened to me. I'm really happy for you that you've had them, but what's next? If you don't turn that experience into a practice, it will just go away. So, Shanti, your decision to study poetry, all of our decisions to study poetry and literature and deep things, with the idea, I'm looking for the depth. I'm looking for the transformation. So when God says, I'm bringing you out of Egypt to be a mamlechet kohanim, I'll say now a sovereign order of kohanim. Now, what are kohanim? The word Cohen is not a family name. Their family was the Levites. What does lechahen mean? What does kahan mean? It means to officiate. Okay, so in Israel, when they talk about the tenure of a minister, they say their kahuna, meaning their time in office when they are fulfilling their ministerial roles. You could call a Cohen a minister. But minister in what way? When you are ministering. So just think for a moment about the life of a clergy person. When am I ministering? When I'm officiating at a funeral, which is one of the holiest things anybody can ever do, is help navigate that world between life and death. When we are attending to the sick and the mourners, we are somehow bringing God's presence in a unique way. My personality, as it were, subsides, and my mission becomes first. Whenever I walk into a room, I ask myself, what is my duty here? What's happening in this room? What is my duty? What does my tradition say? So I try not to bring my subjectivity into the room. I try to bring my calling into the room. So when I would train my rabbinical, cantorial, and chaplaincy students on the presence at life cycle events, the first thing I said is, before you walk into the room, read yourself, read your mission, read the tradition, walk in and read the room, and then do whatever you can to elevate a sense of holiness. Sometimes it's with levity, sometimes it's with solemnity, sometimes it's with an air of celebration, and it doesn't matter what's happening inside of you. I've shared with you oftentimes that there's been times of tragedy and terrible worry in my own life as a rabbi in the background. But if I was called upon to do a wedding, that's what I was doing. And my kahuna, my tenure, as it were, as ministering to the needs of the people, that was more important than anything. Now, I know all of you either are or have been consummate professionals, which means when you arrive, you are called upon to be something or do something. Your subjectivity recedes because something is calling you, and it doesn't matter how your day has been, ideally. It doesn't matter how you feel, because you are supposed to be present. And I know many of the people watching tonight, the way you are present really makes a difference in your life and the lives of other people, maybe in a grand way, maybe in a banal way. So my archetypal understanding of the word kohen is when you are fulfilling your duty, when you are on some mission, banal or holy, where your subjectivity recedes and the duty becomes the most important thing, and therefore always understand what's being called of you. Now, here's the deeper thing, of course. In general, as human beings, in all places and all times, we have duties everywhere. You have a duty to yourself for your own well-being. Love your neighbor as yourself. There has to be some kind of deep sense of inner worth, inner regard, and inner esteem. For many people, that's difficult. Well, it's your duty. We have a duty to the soul. As you know from our studies of Gnosticism and Neoplatonism tomorrow, and Jewish inner life tradition in general, Kabbalah and Hasidism in particular, our souls are stranded. We have a duty to care for the soul. And a deep part of our tradition, and again, since I wasn't able to teach the class, we'll be putting this up in other teaching forms in addition and instead. You have to see your soul as in need of your care. There's something called the authentic self. It's hard to get around. There's something called the soul. We link them through a conscious will, through a conscious decision, which means you have to minister to your own soul. You have to bring healing to your own soul. Our physical beings, right? If the conscious mind does not care for the physical body will deteriorate far before it needs to. I mean, all of us are going to end our lives here one day, but from every spiritual perspective I know of, we are called upon to care for the physical form. It's a duty. It's an a priori duty in every spiritual system I know of, including in our system. So for many people, when are you most acutely aware of your duty? When you're asking yourself if you're going to exercise today. Now, that is the deepest fight with your Yetzer Hara, because your Yetzer Hara always has an excuse, and your duty is to take care of your body. For many people, the main time they encounter their duty to their physical being is when they walk when they go in the kitchen, when they go to a cupboard, when they look at the refrigerator. Try to imagine if on every cupboard and your refrigerator you had a sign that said, "Do your duty." You are part of a holy order. This includes taking care of your physical being. It's a lot of words, maybe something shorter. But you know the idea of the mezuzah that we put on the door? You put that everywhere. because there's an opportunity to do your duty everywhere, to your own well-being, to your soul, to your physical being, and then how much the more so to other people. Now, with other people, we should enjoy ourselves. We should have fun. If you know me for a minute, you know I love to tell jokes. And I said to myself, why do I like to tell jokes so much? Because if the joke is any good at all, I see an expression on that of happiness on the other person's face. And nothing makes me happier than seeing somebody else happy. It's just a great feeling that I can put, 2 or 3 sentences in English language together and somebody's face brightens up. And when someone does it to me and I feel my face brighten up, wow, this is really, life at a pretty great level. But of course, we need to be present to each other in times of sorrow, in times of hurt, and just being present to each other. So from a Kohen perspective, let's say the holy order into which we have all been called, there are endless duties. Now, there's endless times of non-duty. We're cruising, we're flowing, we're just being. But at any second, at any moment, something might happen and you say to yourself, all right, time to be present with my duty. I like to summarize this as insight into myself, insight into other people, insight into what's happening around us, and insight into what my duty is to get us from this moment into the next one. That's in a way the slogan that I carry around for myself. Insight into myself, insight into others, insight into what is happening now, and in understanding what my duty is, insight to my duty, to get us to the next moment, and if it's a tough moment, ideally a better moment. So as I come to this Torah portion, and I think about Leonard's dream of the order of the united heart, I go back to Exodus 19. I'm calling you to be a mamlechet kohanim. I'm going to now translate this as a holy order of people who are present to their duty. A holy order of people who are present to their duty. Now we come to this Torah portion, and I think I've pretty much run out of time. Kedoshim Teyu, please read my Shabbat thought, because this is one of the most rich parts of the Bible that you don't really need anybody to explain it to you. Far be it from me to try to do any better than the words on the page in the book of Leviticus, chapter 19. It is right there for you to read. I gave you the extended metaphor in my Shabbat thought, what I want you to understand is when it says, Kedoshim Teyu, holy will you be, it means you, each one of you. Try to imagine God saying, it's you I'm talking to, and I mean it. I mean you. That Kedoshim Teyu is not God speaking to the Israelites then. It's God speaking to you right now. This holy order has never been disestablished. This holy order continues through time. At Sophia's bat mitzvah tomorrow, she is officially joining the holy order, partly by receiving her talit with the knots. That is our insignia of the holy order. So my prayer for you, for all of us, is just for a moment when you think about your candles. And it's tough that we can't gather. I know that's tough, but it is what it is. What we can do is come here. What we can do is recognizing we're all studying the same text at the same time, that we're all having this internal experience. And as much as we can, we create our own little subgroups, our own little chavarot of 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, and we become aware that a holy order was called into being over 3,000 years ago at Mount Sinai. It continues today in the hearts of every single one of us who accept our being in this holy order.